Hello, 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 beautiful people, and welcome back to our live series, the Career and Care Summit preview. As you guys can see with us today, we have an amazing guest, Tonya Ladipo, who is a friend to the show. We've gotten lots of opportunities to be able to hear from Tonya and her very unique and valuable perspective. She is she's a returning speaker for the Career and Care Summit, and we wanted to make sure that we invited her to the platform to welcome her, but also to get some of a little nuggets, okay? A little bit, we're just gonna get a taste of what you will experience if you join us for the full day at the Career and Care Summit. So we're gonna jump right into it. Tonya, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited you could be here with us.
I'm glad to be back with you, Leah. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You're welcome. So just give the people a little bit of your background, who you are and what it is that you do, and then we're gonna jump right into the questions.
Perfect. I am a licensed clinical social worker by training. Born and raised in Chicago, been in Philadelphia for a minute, over 20 years. Started my career as a traditional therapist, worked with a lot of folks whose struggles were in the workplace. And so the organization, my company, we've been around for almost 22 years, and we really work with people within organizations to help interrupt negative thinking patterns that really lead people to unintentionally cause harm. And so how we can shift how we think about ourselves, how we think about others, how we talk to each other, how we can be accountable to really make the workplace psychologically safe for everyone, which we'll talk a little bit about soon.
Absolutely. So, for those of you who are joining us live, we really appreciate it if you would drop your city in the chat. We'd love to know who is with us as well as where you're located. And before we get into the actual questions that are going to give you all of the richness, or not all of it, we're going to give a taste. We were very intentional about designing the Career and Care Summit with the needs of professional women in mind. That was really how it came to be. But we also wanted to make sure that it felt like a wraparound experience so that there were some questions that we were going to ask, some probing that we were going to do, but also some really skilled experts in the spaces of managing organizations and organizational health. And that's really why we wanted to make sure that we brought folks like Tonya back to the summit. So it's not this idea that we're leaving any stone unturned. We wanted to do our best to bring the best lineup, the highest quality professionals in the areas of workplace health and wellness. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about critical things that we think are important, but we didn't want to just scratch the surface. I am not a clinical psychologist. I am not a social worker by trade. I am not any of those things. And I don't want to pose or pretend that I am, but I do want to partner with brilliant minds that are already doing work in this space as someone who is consistently doing the work around career development and career coaching for leaders. So I think the combination is really powerful. And I love that we're able to collaborate, Tonya. So I'm excited to be able to do this again with you.
Likewise.
So this is your second year joining us as a featured speaker for the Career and Care Summit. My team and I are highly focused, as we mentioned, as creating career, community, and care areas of focus for professional women. So just tell us what stood out to you about our inaugural event last year in 2025 that had you say yes to coming back with us in 2026.
It was the amount of attention and intention that went into the inaugural event. And you said something I think really important in the opening, Leah. It's about the whole self. And I think often, especially business conferences for women, tend to hyper focus on productivity or hyper focus on, and there's not the blend that I think is necessary in terms of seeing people as whole people. And so I think that is, you and your team just did a fantastic job of speaking to career aspirations, career guidance, and also the care that we need as individuals. And because it was so well curated with the speakers, with the attendees, the connections that happened, the sense of community, I think we've all been in spaces where they might talk about community, but it doesn't feel like it. But you, and I think it's testament to you, you really created a space where people not only felt welcomed, but felt held, felt cared for, felt informed. They weren't just feeling cared for. They were coming away with really important information that they could apply the next day about all aspects of their lives.
Oh, I mean, to hear you say that is amazing. Um, because full disclosure, Tonya and I have been doing work together for years now, and we talked about the summit as an informal idea, right? Maybe 3 years ago, something
Yes.
that I was thinking about, and you were one of the first people to say, like, "Oh no, I like that. Like that sounds good." And to have you actually experience it with us last year, and then come away having the same takeaways that we desired,
Mm-hmm.
for what all the intention and effort were, which was, we don't want you to leave any part of yourself on the shelf. We
Right.
want all of your needs to be met holistically, and that means your ambition and your well-being should both be able to be nurtured during the time at the Career and Care Summit. So thank you so much for that. So you talk about psychological safety because, and it's really important. Psychological safety is a term that gets thrown around a lot right now, but
Yes.
it's frequently misunderstood. Can you give us your definition and maybe tell us how, maybe give us a sense of what it's not?
Sure. Sure.
Because we think that there's a lot of leaders that may be using the term and could get tripped up. So tell us what psychological safety is and what it's not.
I appreciate this question. So, psychological safety, especially for the workplace, it is not just a sense. It's not. It's not just a feeling. It is the reality of being able to communicate disagreement without harm or retribution. So, it's not. So, to go into what it is not, it is not feeling comfortable all the time. It is not agreeing all the time. It is not being nice. Honestly, you know what? I think a great example of the difference between of psychological safety is the difference between being nice and being kind. So what it
Okay.
is clear communication. It is respectful communication. It doesn't mean you're cursing or yelling at people. It means taking the risk to disagree with a peer, with a supervisor, with somebody who reports to you, taking the risk to disagree with the ultimate goal being to move the work forward. So, not disagreeing simply to be disagreeable, but disagreeing because I have a different perspective that needs to be considered because it is going to make this project, this service better for what our organization is trying to do. And so when I think about being nice, that's where people get tripped up of we all love each other, we're like a family,
Oh
we're
no.
polite, and that feels good on the surface. And what generally is brewing underneath is a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, and a lot of unfair actions, only doing things for certain people instead of everybody. If you have a psychologically safe team or environment, culture, then people are kind. That means they're respectful, but they're going to tell you when something is out of place. They're going to tell you when they disagree with you. Niceness doesn't do that. Niceness values politeness and keeping the status quo the same. Kindness values respecting the person, respecting the other, respecting yourself, and respecting your workplace. We're here. We're here to do a job. Psychological safety is not about being friends. And if you are friends at work, you have like hit the jackpot. That is fantastic, but that is not the goal or function of work. It really isn't. It's to get the job done and get paid for it. And we can do that respectfully.
Tonya, you said so many things. I can't like, I laughed midway through because I'm sure so many people who are with us have heard, well, we're like a family and we want you to make sure you feel like you're a part of the family. And this is a work context and when that's being shared. And oftentimes what people are lulled into there is the trap of the external and the narrative that organizations may be trying to push. But like you said, behind the scenes, there is something else happening altogether. So I actually like to say, like, it's a bit of a red flag if your organization or even your manager, your leader says something about relative to family when you're thinking about your workplace, because your family doesn't lay you off. Your
Exactly.
family doesn't hold back compensation, right? So there we have to separate that. And I think helping people have a clear definition of what it is and what it isn't
Mhm.
gives them a step in the right direction to see Now let me reevaluate maybe what I'm hearing inside of my organization so that I can figure out what needs that I need to meet for myself. And I think
Right.
that's where the power really lies. So I'm excited for that. Were you going to add something to it?
No, I did the point about, I agree that it's a red flag when organizations talk about we're a family. And I think that pulls on people's heartstrings for an ideal family. Because actually, there are actually some families that will lay you off. They'll kick you out.
That's
If
true.
you don't, if you don't, if you're not like us, then you're out. And so as you were talking, I was just thinking, this is true for all of us. We learn how to communicate and interact with each other from childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And we then come into the workplace and put on professional clothes and bring all of those habits to work. And so the idea that some people are drawn to like a team that operates like a family, we're coming from very different perspectives. And I think it's dangerous. Instead, the workplace is another place that has its own culture that is not like a family. It is like a job because it is a job. But we spend so much time there. So the relationships at work actually are important. How we communicate, how we disagree, how we choose who we advance and who we can leave behind. All of those are crucial. But I just want to kind of double down on what you're saying, that the workplace should not be like a family. It should be like a workplace.
And I think, and you're going to get more into it when you're at the summit with us. So we're not going to give everybody everything. This is meant to be a teaser. But I loved the phrase of without fear of retribution.
Yes.
And I think that is really what seals the deal is people oftentimes have the ability to recognize or see challenges or patterns, and they're able to muster up the courage to say, hey, I have a concern, or this is a challenge. And there's probably somebody in the audience here who is stewing and saying, well, I'm not sure if I should say something or whether or not it's worth it. And I think that fear of retribution is the real determining factor oftentimes for organizations to hear actually the best and brightest in their organization share their perspectives. It's that fear of retribution where the danger lies. And that's social danger, that's relational danger, that is political capital. That's all dangerous. And I love that we're going to get more into that at the summit. So psychological safety is, I think, a really, really rich trough of information that you're going to be able to share with our summit attendees. So but take us to the next idea around there's a woman who's listening who are maybe in a mid-level or a senior leadership role. And what does a psychologically unsafe environment actually maybe look like or feel like from the inside? Just to give folks a perspective of am I now getting the right language? Am I now being taught the right language that I can use in order to address what I'm seeing in my environment? So give just an example or a perspective of what people may be experiencing when they notice a psychologically unsafe environment.
So when people are experiencing it, it is often felt in their body before they have words for it in their mind. So this sense of tension in your stomach, in your head, in your throat, somewhere in your body, your chest, dread of, it might not be dread of work in general, but dread of a certain person, a certain team, having physical ailments, like getting migraines, trouble sleeping, all the things that we associate with burnout, feeling anxious, depressed. So those are some of the things that I think happen when we are in spaces that can be harmful to us. Because when you fear retribution, it's not just, sometimes it's fear because we're not used to disagreeing. Sometimes it's fear because we're not used to being respected when we disagree. So I do want to kind of put the balance on. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's us, right? But sometimes it is the organization, and that fear is real. And the retribution, in addition to what the examples you gave, Leah, it's also about compensation, which then frankly rolls into generational wealth. So if I can't speak up because I'm going to get passed over for promotion, which is going to affect my raise, which is going to affect the trajectory of salary increases for the next 20 years, which is going to affect what I can do for my family, that's significant and a big reason people do keep quiet. And so if you find yourself thinking, is it worth it? What am I going to lose? To really allow yourself to ask and answer that question fully. And I think I want to add one more thing, especially I think the more advanced you are in your career, sometimes the more advanced you become and you've been in an organization for a long time, you start to perpetuate what has been done to you.
Ooh, wait a minute, Tonya. Now listen. You have struck what I think is a absolutely critical chord, and I'm seeing it so often in multi-generational workplaces where
Yes.
you have boomers, you have millennials, you have Gen Xers, you may have some Gen Z folks who are in the
Yes.
organization, and they're all figuring out what working looks like together. And
Yes.
there is some behavior 100% that we're starting to see
Mm-hmm.
where there is, it's done because it's always been done that way. And I don't think that's new. But we're also starting to see the deeper layer of why should it be easier for you? It wasn't that way for
Right.
me. And it
Right.
being a real resentment. So just say a little bit more about perpetuating the status quo, right? Is essentially what you're explaining.
Right. And how it causes harm throughout the organization. And you are right. There is a lot of resentment of, wait, I've struggled so hard. I've had to do this. Why should I make it easier for the next person? And so I'm going to talk from a personal but also business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I'm a Black woman. I hope my life is easier than my Black grandmother's.
As do I. Like, isn't that
Right?
the goal, right?
She I say this often, it's true. She cleaned houses for 60 years.
Mm.
My life is significantly easier than hers was. And I want my children's lives to be easier than mine was. Like, to me, that's progress. Like,
Mm.
that's what I want. Now that's very personal. So in the business world, we have the opportunity to say, this is how I came up in business.
Mm.
This is what I had to endure. And I am so angry that I had to endure it. I am so hurt that I had to be resilient. I didn't want to be resilient. I want the soft life everybody's talking about. Why? Like, to give yourself permission for all of those truths. It's not about dismissing how hard it was. I think there's a way to embrace it.
Yeah.
I think a way to be honest about it. I think there's a way to talk to your peers about it. And also to say, and I'm not going to do this to those behind me. We often talk about, especially when you're an only, whatever race, gender, sexuality, right? When you're an only, you often talk about leaving the door open for those, right? Coming through the door behind you. This is part of that.
I think it's a huge part of it. And I also think another term that may help people to contextualize this is recognizing when there is gatekeeping that's happening. Because I think this idea of why should it be easier? And those who are gatekeeping are holding back resources, holding back knowledge or information that could make something or someone's role easier. And we've seen this in every workplace and every organization. So I love that you're bringing it up because I don't think that it's unique to one industry. I don't think it's unique to a level in an organization. I don't think it's unique to a discipline that you can work in a company. We see these kinds of examples repeated over and over and over again. And I think gatekeeping and psychological safety, or the idea of protecting the status quo, is something that many people are confronted with, but don't have the language for, or don't have the coalition inside of an organization in order to effectuate any real change in that organization. And then you start to see the effects of those cultural choices affect the workplace, right? And the culture and how people get to enjoy or not enjoy the way that they work.
Very true. And I think I want to add to people who might realize, like, ooh, maybe I've been part of gatekeeping. When you have that realization,
Mm-hmm.
I talked about, honoring the struggle, your own struggle, but also, well, what could you learn from it? If you quote unquote allow it to be easier for those coming behind you, well, what could you allow to be easier for yourself in this moment in your role? So
Hmm.
maybe you didn't have, maybe the past 10 years were really hard and you're seeing people come along and it's easier for them. Well, what can you learn about that process that you can apply right now to your position to make it easier?
And you know what, Tonya, because what you said earlier around the direct impacts on generational wealth and compensation
Yes.
and raises, that hits home for me. We talk about compensation negotiation all the time here, because I think it's an area that is very much taboo and not
Yes.
often discussed. But I think what you hit on here is also, if you're a leader in an organization now and you're saying, why is this important? There's all of this touchy feely soft perspective that people like Leah and Tonya are trying to compel inside of an organization, and there's no actual problem that needs to be solved. People just need to toughen up, right? There's some narrative there. People just need to adjust. This is the world that we live in now. And I can hear people probably saying that in the background. But I think once you give someone an opportunity to calculate the cost of what they would lose should they overextend themselves, or should they be courageous to add value to an organization and get penalized, you'll also see how the risk of losing people who really sincerely could add tremendous value to your organization is amplified dramatically. And there's all these strategies around retention. And what I hear you saying is, you would not have to invest as much in what would retain people if your organization as a whole had a psychological safety level that people could calculate and feel like it's worth me bringing my skills and talents here because I don't fear retribution, and I'm not going to be, my money is not going to be affected. Once you start talking about people's coins, it's
Right.
going to change
Right.
people's opinion immediately.
Very true. Very true. And so, I mean, because what you're saying is essentially you're going to lose your best people. You're
Right.
going to lose your best people because they're going to see, it's not worth it. You don't want my opinion. You're not willing. So I'm going to go, I'm going to take it elsewhere, which is likely a competitor. And then they're going to bring that brilliance there. Whereas if organizations had, it's funny, sometimes people talk about people need to toughen up. Sometimes organizations need to toughen up and they need to have
Ooh.
thicker skin and hear what doesn't always feel good, but is important. We worked with an organization once and we did a focus group and anonymous surveys and gathered a lot of data and input on how employees were doing. And it wasn't great. And the organization, they were in their feelings when we had to deliver the information.
Mhm.
And somebody in management kind of threw up their hands and it was like, well, why are they even here? Why do they stay? And I had to
Mm.
stop them. And I said, you know, they actually love this organization. I know I'm delivering all the things they don't, but they would not take time to share their critique if they did not have a deep love for this organization and what it could be. So they're sharing because they know you can be great. And when I said that, like the person, like they heard it differently. They're like, oh, okay, like we actually are on the same side, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
Mhm.
And so if they weren't willing to hear that feedback, they would all, this incredible set of people would leave, go to a competitor, and take their ideas elsewhere. So
Mhm.
it really is, I think, an imperative. It's not touchy feely. It's not woo woo. It is, do you want to keep the best people? Do you want to hear the best people be their best, or do you want to really kind of minimize them and water them down so like nothing is changing in a positive way? Like, I mean, those are the choices I see as I
Those
see
are
them.
because it comes down to, like, do you really want to get better
Do you?
as an organization? And I love that you said organizations need to toughen up, because I think the onus is often put on employees or on
Yes.
individuals or teams or managers at a lower level to be able to constrict and conform and force people into the status quo. And that is kind of the hierarchy that capitalism allows, right? But I think when you're, you and I have been in the rooms with executive teams and delivering messaging that is important for them to understand in order to inform their strategy and in order for them to make great choices for their people going forward. And we see that oftentimes they are the ones that can't manage getting the feedback, or
That's
they are the
true.
ones who have to remove their own ego or remove their own desire to be right to hear directly from people in their organization, just to be open to hear them. So I love that you said organizations and leadership at the top level have to adjust, right? Toughen up so that they can be gatekeepers, so they can stop being gatekeepers and really run amazing, empowered, well-informed organizations. Because the potential for that, I think, is exciting, right? Is
I agree.
exhilarating.
I agree.
Okay, so let's jump to this organizational change question, because we get this question a lot, and I think we understand in the 2026 economy that we're navigating, in America that we're navigating, there's change feels ever present, and some of that is navigating organizational change and shifts and decisions that organizations are making. But it's one of the most emotionally taxing experiences that an individual or a team can go through, and that's navigating organizational change. What do emotionally intelligent leaders do differently during periods of change that separates them from leaders who lose their people in the process?
Yes. So the first thing I would say leaders do that are strong with emotional intelligence, this is so important now for all the factors you just said. They understand that they understand a couple of things. First off, the rate of change and the pace of change that we are navigating right now as humans is significant. I
It's
don't know that
mind numbing. It's
it,
mind numbing. It's
I'm glad you used
crazy.
that word. I'm not sure that our brains were designed to have to deal with this much at this much time.
Hmm.
So recognizing that on a good day, we're navigating constant change, which is, I think, going beyond what our brain chemistry really and our nervous system really wants. And I do want to layer in, the pandemic was 6 years ago. We have not been okay since then. So we might technically call it over, but like as a people, like we're still very much trying to figure out how that has shifted how we work and think and interact with each other.
Yeah,
So
I have my own personal experience with that. I think you and I have talked about that. We're in Philadelphia, and I have children who are school age, and we were thrown back into virtual school, right? We were thrown back into a pandemic feeling. And I had to talk to my husband about it this morning to say, man, this feels like a bad flashback. And I need to get back on track because this is hard. And this was a very difficult experience to navigate remote school for young children during the pandemic. And those flashbacks are still very real. There was a real trigger that came along with the announcement that bad weather meant that we weren't going to be able to manage our routine in the way we normally did. So I think you're 100% right that we haven't fully understood the impacts of the pandemic, and we're still course correcting and addressing
yes,
our nervous system support needs while we're trying to show up every day
yes.
in the workplace and in our lives.
Because what the pandemic was a global trauma, which is unusual.
Hmm.
You might have local community trauma, but not globally. It was a global trauma that we've all endured, and our bodies and minds are still trying to process it. And so when I think about the workplace and organizational change that comes with restructuring or layoffs, that is traumatic. Is it global pandemic traumatic? I mean, in my field, we'll talk about big T, little t. Like, no, it's not. Is it the same? No, it's not the same. So I want to be clear about that. And it is a often abrupt disruption. So it is unexpected. There is not there's not the threat of like loss of life, but loss of livelihood.
Hmm.
And that is really scary. So for leaders who have to deliver the news, or maybe they don't have to deliver it, but they're still a part of it, to recognize that the impacts of organizational change are emotional, are relational, are financial, our workplace culture enhancing or detracting, it touches all aspects of the organization and of individuals' lives. And so I want to say, I was going to say, especially to leadership, but this is actually important for everybody. Um, by the time restructuring or layoffs, by the time they're communicated to people, they've been in the works for a while, right? Um, Sometimes months,
Sometimes years. Hmm.
sometimes years. You're
Hmm.
absolutely right. So there are a few people who have known for a very long time. But it's a shock to most people.
Yeah.
For the people who have known, you've had the process, you've had the time of, like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. You've gone, for people who are kind of emotionally connected to themselves, you've already gone through your emotions,
Mm.
of fear and anger and sadness and disbelief and confusion. You've already gone through it by the time you're delivering the news. So for you, this is just like a Wednesday, and because you've already had your process. And
Yeah.
so emotionally intelligent leaders will understand that this is not just another day for the people receiving the news. And so
Mm.
they will hold it with care, which means they will be kind in how they deliver the information. It will not be nice, but they will be kind. They will be clear. They will say exactly what is happening. They will say when it is happening, and they will say the next steps. They will be clear. They will be kind. And really strong leaders will do that not just to those who are impacted, but to those who still have a role. Because what they recognize is it's changing the dynamics in the team and the organization. So let's say you're laying off, 25 people. Okay, you still have 100 left. So as you walk the 25 people through their exit plan that they're likely upset by, you still have 100 people who still need care, who still need attention, who still want reassurances, they want stability, and you will have to show up and deliver as much information as you can and as is appropriate. You don't tell everybody everything all of the time, um, but you have to give them something. To just say these people are gone lets the confusion and unease linger in a way that's going to be harmful.
You have hit on something that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough, which is why you're great. Um, when you think about people having had the opportunity to digest information and sit with it for a longer period of time, and then feel that they may not like the change, but they have gotten a chance to process that. I think we underestimate how necessary it is to give people adequate time to process what is a life altering change.
Yes.
And we're talking specifically about being separated from an organization, being laid off, severed, whatever term you want to use. And it's very relevant right now in this moment, as we know. So I think that the idea that companies or organizations are making very savvy business decisions is something that is inevitable, and we're not going to be able to roll that back.
Correct.
But what you can do as a leader in your organization is deliver that information as early as it's going to be as possible, and with the level of kindness and care that these individuals really genuinely deserve. And I think that had to be said. I also think that this idea that survivors of layoffs, and I'm using that term intentionally, layoff survivors, I've been a layoff survivor multiple times in my career, maybe six times.
Mm.
Too many to count on one hand, I can say for sure. And I think that's another area that is just under acknowledged. When you
Yes.
have human resource departments who are essentially tasked to communicate layoffs, restructures, separations, people leaving an organization, and that is their main priority, and you don't have some other support system in place for those who remain, knowing that those are going to be the people who have to absorb the
Yes.
work of the individuals who have been
Yes.
severed, and then the people who have to rebuild their culture, their work process, their relationships without the resources that they once had. I think we treat it, or I won't say we, it has become so common in corporate America, in nonprofit spaces, where these changes are just business decisions, and we're supposed to give this perception that they're not personal. It may not have been personal in the decision that got made, but in the execution, it's
Yes.
extremely personal.
Yes.
And I think more leaders need to know that. And I don't know if they don't know or if it just doesn't get prioritized in the midst of making very business bottom line decisions. But the human impact of that is so real. And I'm just glad you brought up both of those concepts.
And I'm glad you're taking it further, because in terms of when people are making the decisions, that it's not looked at. I think there is looking at the bottom line and all the money that they're going to save, but they're not seeing the costs that they're going to increase with having to retrain people, having to get people up to speed, having productivity decrease because people are not at their best because their work bestie is gone, or maybe they actually didn't really get along, but this person was a wealth of knowledge,
mm-hmm.
and now they're gone, and now I'm spending hours trying to get the information that they could have given to me in 15 minutes. So there is a financial cost associated with the changes when organizations are trying to save money when they do layoffs and restructuring.
Okay. So we're gonna leave that one there because I think we could go on deeper, but I want to make sure that we get to a couple of more questions while we still have you. So for the woman who is listening right now, who may be exhausted, who's been carrying her team through uncertainty, who might be questioning whether leading the way she's leading in the workplace of 2026 with emotional intelligence and care and the courage that's necessary to do that, she's evaluating, is it really worth it? What do you want her to know? What do you want to share with her?
I love that question. I want her to decide where she wants to put her energy. So the woman you just described is caring for so many people. And is it worth it at the cost of herself? Perhaps not. Is it worth it when she's taking care of herself? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if she goes down or if she checks out, the ripple effect is going to be significant, because the way that she is leading and caring and coaching and mentoring is impacting many more people than she actually physically sees.
Yeah.
So I would actually want her to consider, what does she need to do differently for herself so that she can continue to show up as the leader she wants to be.
And I think what you shared there comes down to, do you have the right support systems in
Yes.
place? And I also think that there's an expectation oftentimes in the workplace that just more gets added to your plate. There's more responsibility, there's more things to do, there's more deliverables that come along with it. And I think that oftentimes we accept, and I can speak from my own experience, we accept that more has to be given in order for greater compensation, in order for that bigger title, in order for whatever that aspirational goal that we may have set when we came into the job. And I think the Career and Care Summit really stands in the gap for women who are navigating this question, because there is a way for you to still achieve and have the ambition, have the desires that you want to see for yourself. But I do think it requires us to redefine success in a lot of ways. Because the way that the system may have been designed a decade ago, 15 years ago, it just doesn't exist in the same form today. So I think if we're chasing a definition of success that we developed outside of today's friction, of today's norms, of today's workplace, then there is a higher cost that you're paying in order to chase a definition of success that was set up not within the confines or the constricts of that we may be navigating today. So I think it can be freeing in some way to say, well, let me redefine it. Let
Agree.
me take this opportunity to step out of what I had already believed was the only way and just evaluate if there is another opportunity. And let me do that in community with other like minded people
Yes.
who have either done it, who aspire to do it, who are on the path, who want to work with you and to collaborate in order to do that. And that's who's going to be in the room at the Career and Care Summit. So I'm just, it's so gratifying in one way to just know that we have come to a place where these kinds of conversations are going to happen. Because I think the conversation happening was the most important starting point. And then you have these brilliant people who are highly capable that will do the things, right? Like that's the proof point.
Right. Right. No, 100%. And I have a framework called Excellence with Ease, and that's what we're going to be talking about at the summit, which
Yes.
is like you can still be excellent, you can still be driven, you can still be ambitious. I'm not promoting mediocrity at all. And we can do it with more ease, with more care and attention to ourselves so that we're showing up the way we want to with others, but we're not neglecting ourselves and being really thoughtful of how do we, to your point, what does excellence and success look like for us today? And perhaps it doesn't take the 10 steps we were taught it takes. Maybe we can actually do it in 4.
Okay. So you guys heard that, right? You heard the Excellence with Ease framework that is Tonya's signature framework is going to come out. It's going to come out of the box. She's going to work through that during her session at the Career and Care Summit. You don't want to miss that. I'm going to ask you one more question, and it's what's one thing that you wish more organizations would stop doing immediately? I mean, like it's a today decision immediately in the name of wellness, and one thing that you wish that they would start, something that they should stop, and something that they should start as soon as possible.
What they should stop doing immediately are self-care initiatives without accountability.
Ooh, okay. Okay. So more of kind of let's all hang out together, let's do a yoga class, and then let me send you back into unreasonable expectations.
Yes. Yes. That's it. Let's bring in a massage therapist, which is fantastic, but a company that's bringing a massage therapist in, their salaries are probably decent. You can go get your own massage. What you want is you want the workplace to be one where you can thrive, bring your best professional work self to work, and be supported in that. So I really want, that's what I would love for organizations to stop. And what I would love for them to start when it comes to wellness is to be internally and externally honest and realistic about what they can do. I do think that we're in an age where people are expecting a lot from their organization, and sometimes it's unrealistic. Like your job can't give you everything. Right. And I think organizations get into trouble when they promise that they can. Be clear. We can't do this. We cannot. We can give you pizza every Friday. That's what we can do.
Right.
But we can't be your family.
I think you've helped, right? Because there are multiple players, right, that are a part of the relationships that are happening in the workplace. There are the individuals, there are the employees, the teams, there's the leadership within the organization. But I think you've given the individuals a reality check.
Yes.
You are not going to be able to be in an organization where everyone is your friend. That's not realistic. You're also not going to be in an organization where it really genuinely feels like a healthy family. That's also not realistic. Correct. But what it reminds me of is to create these communities, these relationships outside of your workplace so that you get those needs met. It's not that you don't need community. It's not that you don't need family. It's just that your workplace is not where that should happen day in and day out. It is up to us as individuals to curate and cultivate that for ourselves outside of work. And I know some people might be saying, but I'm working so hard, I'm exhausted, I'm burned out, I don't have any time to then create community or have healthy hobbies. And what Tonya and I are saying is, once you understand the crux of the challenge, that you don't have those other things, there is where the work can begin.
That's it.
because there's where you begin to carve out my work serves a purpose. It requires certain things of me. I want to deliver on those things, and that will give me a sense of gratification. I will feel valuable, and that is important. And that's the job of my work. When I leave work, the job of my community and the job of my safe spaces is to then validate me and bring me joy and allow me to have friendships and allow me to have levity and allow me to not feel judged. But understanding that those are two different experiences that need to be had in two different groups of people. Go ahead.
No, I'm 100%. And what I will say is, if you have ever been fortunate enough where that does blend at work, recognize recognize that it is a gift, and enjoy it, but
Savor
also,
that.
yeah, savor it, right? Like, embrace it, and also understand that it is not standard, and that you will not find it in every organization.
And then even if you have it, that it could change, right? Because ultimately we don't have the control over how those decisions
Sure.
are made more broadly in the organization. And I can tell you, I had a phenomenal work experience at one point in my career where I loved the work that I was doing, the people that I was doing it with. I felt like we captured lightning in a bottle. It was
Yeah.
phenomenal, and it was an absolute game changer. However, 2 years later, it was a completely different environment. Things had changed, people had changed, and we had to adjust to that because it's work. And then we
Yeah.
had to figure out how to bring those connections or those deep relationships that we built in the workplace into the community space so that we could maintain them and keep them because we believe that they added so much to our lives. But we had to figure out a way to do that on our own outside of work. We had to put down the expectation that work's job was to create those kinds of interactions with us because that is not real.
Yeah, it's not.
Tonya, this has been, oh my gosh, this has been the best. So, the Career and Care Summit is less than 30 days away. So, on March 21st, 2026, at Community College of Philadelphia, tickets are selling fast. We hope to be absolutely sold out by the time we get to next Tuesday, March 3rd. So, grab your ticket today. Tell the listeners what you're most looking forward to about being in person again with this group of professional women.
Ooh, I love that. There's something special about being in person. We virtual is convenient, and it's convenient.
Yeah, we
But
know. We both know.
exactly, we were talking about it before we started. So it's
Yep.
convenient, and the magic that happens when people are in person. Um, if you think about whether you go to like a sporting event, you go to like a faith-based event, like there's something that you can't quite explain that is magical when people are coming together who wants to be there in connection and community with each other. It really is magical. And so whether you're coming with a friend, whether you're coming with your mentor, whether you're coming by yourself, I'm excited to be in the space with everybody and hearing their stories and sharing my frameworks and my story and just learning from each other in a way that really is limited virtually. So I'm excited to see people there.
That makes my day. It makes my day to think about curated, thoughtful in-person experiences that were designed with the needs of the participants in mind. So less of this idea of I'm showing up somewhere and hoping that they address concerns that I have, or hoping that the speakers understand where I am in my career, hoping that I don't have to give a lot of context and backstory for the type of questions that I have or for the challenges that I'm navigating. That is exactly what we did when we curated the summit. Was we went through all of the scenarios, and we went as deep as we could in feedback from last year's summit and from work that we do directly with women in organizations who are in a sandwich generation, who are navigating perimenopause and menopause, who are going to be empty nesters in this next phase of life, who may be trying to figure out where their career trajectory and strategy should go. All of those things got baked in to the goal and the objective of the summit. So now being able to have the magic of people experiencing it in person in a healthy, enjoyable, aesthetically pleasing, all of the things.
Yes.
It brings me so much joy just to think about the experience that I am looking forward. I can't wait for it to actually happen. And as we think about the next few weeks, and we know that we, in our region, Philadelphia especially, and in our communities, sometimes we like to wait to the last minute and say, well, I'm going to wait, I'm going to get my ticket, I'm going to give me 2 more days. And I'm telling you, through this series of Career and Care Summit preview, you will get to see that you're going to have some phenomenal speakers, some simply amazing subject matter experts that are bringing their very best to this summit. If you're even considering it, go get your ticket today. Don't be on the outside looking in. I don't want that for you. I don't want it for you at all. We want you to be in the room. We're really, really excited. The tickets have been selling really well. And my team and I have kind of been like, oh my gosh, we really have captured something. And we hope that the summit can do what it did last year and exponentially better. We're thrilled to be able to partner with leaders like you, Tonya, and some of our other speakers. And we're looking forward to March 21st, where we get to be together in person at the Career and Care Summit. So thank you guys so much for riding with us. If you have any questions or you're looking for more information, you can find us at gemsforthejourney.org. You can also scan the QR code on the screen to get more information about the Career and Care Summit, where you will get to see Tonya as one of our closing speakers. You put your anchor leg in the anchor for the right reasons, right? We know how that works. For all of our track references, you put your anchor in the anchor leg because you need the anchor to be there. So Tonya will be our anchor for the Career and Care Summit. We're really excited for all that comes, and we're looking forward to seeing you there in person. Until then, make your journey work for you.
Thank you, Leah.